Okay, so picture this. You're waiting for your coffee and it's taking forever, or you're stuck in an elevator with someone you don't know. It's that classic awkward silence situation. And you know what happens to all of us, right? Well, in this deep dive, we're tackling small talk strategies, specifically 4 phrases that can really come in handy in those moments and just make you a smoother conversationalist in general.
Yeah, and it's funny because people often think of small talk as superficial, but it actually plays a really important role in our social lives. I mean, think about it. Those quick little exchanges can actually be the starting point for building connections, even if they're fleeting ones. They
Yeah.
help put people at ease and make those everyday interactions a little more pleasant.
I totally agree. We're not trying to turn anyone into a master orator here. It's more about having a few go-to phrases that can boost your confidence and make you feel more comfortable in those social situations.
Exactly. Think of it as adding a few more tools to your conversational toolbox. Just little things that can help you handle those potentially awkward moments with a bit more grace and ease.
Okay, so let's jump into the first phrase. Barely even. Now, this one might seem pretty basic at first glance, but the way it's used can add this intensity and even a touch of humor to what you're saying.
Right.
For example, the source material we looked at gave the example, "It was so dark I could barely even see." And it just creates this really vivid image, don't you think?
It does. It's like you're emphasizing how close something is to being impossible. And it kind of taps into the shared experience where all have those moments where something is so extreme, it's almost unbelievable. It's relatable, which is why it works so well in casual conversation. Think about how you could use this in your own life. Like maybe you were so busy you could barely even grab lunch, or so tired you could barely even think straight.
Yeah, and there's also that subtle self-deprecation that can make it even funnier. Like you're kind of poking fun at the situation and at yourself a little bit.
Exactly. It adds a layer of humor without being over the top. It's subtle, but it can make a big difference in how people perceive you.
Okay, so moving on to our next phrase, catch. This one goes way beyond just its literal meaning, right?
Yeah.
We use it in so many different contexts, like, did you catch the game last night? Or, sorry I didn't catch your name.
Right. And in those situations, it's not about physically catching something. It's more about briefly noticing or understanding something. So, did you catch the game really means did you happen to see any of it? And I didn't catch your name is a softer way of saying you didn't hear it clearly.
It's so interesting how much we rely on these subtle cues in conversation. We're not always super direct, are we?
No, we're not. And there are cultural differences at play, too. In some cultures, being too direct can be considered rude, so these indirect phrases become super important for navigating social interactions smoothly.
I see what you mean. Okay, ready for a conversational ninja move. Our third phrase is, by the way. This is like your secret weapon for smoothly introducing a new topic into the conversation. I mean, the source material had this hilarious example of someone mistaking a woman's wife for her daughter, and a well-placed, by the way, saved the day and totally shifted the conversation.
That's a perfect example of how, by the way, can act as a bridge in conversation. It helps avoid those sudden topic jumps that can sometimes make conversations feel awkward or disjointed.
Yeah.
It signals to the other person that you're gently changing gears, and it can even be used to bring in some humor or lightness, like we saw in that example.
Yeah, it's like that subtle signal that keeps things flowing smoothly. Instead of slamming on the brakes and making a hard turn, you're using your turn signal and easing into the next lane, so to speak.
Exactly. It's all about maintaining that conversational flow, which is so important for making people feel at ease and connected. And when you think about it, that's a big part of what makes small talk successful.
Okay, are you ready for our final phrase? It's a classic but super useful, take the stairs. And before you start thinking about a workout, we're not talking about actually climbing stairs here. We're talking about the idiomatic use of the phrase.
Right, right. What's interesting here is that subtle difference between take the stairs and simply use the stairs. Take the stairs implies a more deliberate choice, like you're saying, I'm choosing to do this. And it kind of hints at those unspoken values we have around physical activity and making healthy choices. Even in this tiny phrase, you can see how language reflects those deeper cultural attitudes.
Wow, I've never thought about it like that. It's amazing how much meaning can be packed into these seemingly simple phrases. All right, so let's imagine you're at a networking event, feeling a bit lost in the crowd. Try approaching someone and saying, it's barely even possible to find a quiet corner in here, isn't it?
And see how that opens the door for them to respond. They might agree with you, share their own observation, and suddenly you've got a conversation going. From there, you could use did you happen to ask if they've seen a specific presentation or met the keynote speaker. You're using catch in a natural conversational way.
And if you want to switch gears gracefully, just slip in a by the way. Like, by the way, I love your shoes. Where do you get them? Boom, instant connection. And if the conversation is winding down and you need a polite way to exit, you can always say, well, I'm going to take the stairs to stretch my legs. It was great chatting with you.
Exactly. You've seamlessly woven those four phrases into a natural, engaging conversation. And that's the key. These phrases aren't meant to be used in isolation. Think of them as building blocks for creating those effortless interactions that make networking events or any social gathering less daunting.
And, the more you use them, the more natural and confident you'll sound. It's like anything else, practice makes perfect. But even more important than that, remember that small talk isn't about being brilliant or witty. It's about being present, showing genuine interest, and making those small connections that can brighten someone's day. And hey, maybe even your own.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is about making those little connections. And sometimes they can be more rewarding than we realize.
So true. Okay, let's quickly recap the four phrases we've been talking about. Barely even. For adding intensity and a bit of humor catch, to express that you briefly noticed or understood something, by the way, for smooth transitions between topics, and take the stairs to imply making a deliberate choice. They might seem simple, but they're super versatile tools for navigating the world of small talk.
They are. And remember, the key is to use them in a way that feels natural to you. The goal isn't to sound like a robot spitting out pre-programmed phrases. It's all about weaving them into your own personal conversational style.
Exactly. The more you practice, the more these phrases will just become second nature. And you'll be amazed at how much more comfortable you feel in those everyday conversations.
Here's something interesting to think about. How can mastering these simple phrases contribute to feeling more at ease and a sense of belonging in social situations? When you feel confident handling those small interactions, you're more likely to engage with others, build connections, and feel like you're part of the social fabric. It's almost like you've cracked the code of effortless conversation.
I love that analogy. It's like you've unlocked a secret level in the game of social interaction.
Exactly. And it all starts with those little steps, those seemingly insignificant phrases that can actually make a big difference. So pay attention to how other people use them in real-life conversations. You might be surprised at how much power these everyday expressions have.
It's not just about talking, though. It's also about listening, observing, and responding in a genuine way. That's what really makes a conversation come alive.
Absolutely. Small talk is a two-way street. It's about being present, being curious, and showing a real interest in the other person. When you do that, those seemingly insignificant exchanges can turn into something much more meaningful.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's those little moments of connection that can brighten our day, remind us we're not alone, and create a sense of shared humanity.
Beautifully said. So go out there, embrace those everyday conversations, and remember, the world is full of potential connections waiting to be made.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into small talk strategies. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration, and we encourage you to try out these phrases. You might be surprised by how much they can enrich your daily interactions.
And as always, the learning doesn't end here. Keep paying attention to how people use language in your everyday life. You'll continue to gain insights and discover the power of those seemingly simple phrases we all use every day.
Until next time, happy chatting.
And sometimes those little conversations can actually lead to bigger things, like friendships, business collaborations, or even romantic relationships.
It really is amazing, isn't it? How something as basic as hello or how was your day can spark those kinds of connections. We often don't give small talk enough credit, but it's like the glue that holds our social world together.
It really is. And the best part, anyone can learn how to do it well. With a little practice and by putting yourself out there, you can become a master of those everyday interactions.
That's so true. And it's not about memorizing a script or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about being yourself, being present in the moment, and letting your true personality come through.
Exactly. People can tell when you're being genuine, and that's what makes a conversation truly enjoyable and memorable.
So there you have it, our deep dive into small talk strategies. We've looked at 4 powerful phrases that can help you feel more confident and at ease in everyday conversations.
And just remember, the key is to practice, use them in real-life situations, and make them your own.
Exactly. So go out there, embrace those small moments of connection, and watch your social skills take off.
Happy chatting, everyone.
And that wraps up our deep dive for today.